Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Ahmed for Avionics, and this is your course Mastering Docker. We have stopped at the previous lecture when we tried to run WordPress and we realized that it was not running. And when we examined the logs of the container, we have learned that WordPress needs an environment variable that is called WordPress_db_password. And this, as we said, further implies that it needs a database container to be installed in order for it to work. So let's create a database for our container. So docker1 minus name, and we can call it wpressdb just to know that it is related to wpress container, and we're gonna run it in the background, and we're gonna base it on MySQL latest version. But MySQL needs more options to be assigned to it when it is created. MySQL actually needs some more options to be correctly set up and started. We have to pass in an environment variable. We're going to discuss the environment variables later in this section. It is just a setting that is passed to the container while creation. In our case, the environment variable is the admin password of the database. This needs to be added to the container while it's creation. It's called MySQL_root_password, and in our case, we are going to use admin as our password. Now let's run docker ps. Okay, and as you can see here, I'm having MySQL image running, my MySQL container using the MySQL image running here. And as you can see here, it has the port 3306 exposed in the ports section of the output of ps command. Now I have to link the wpress container with this database in order to work correctly. We have discussed linking briefly in the first part of this section, the first lecture. But in order, of course, to do that, we have to delete or remove the wpress container to be able to recreate it again. Now, let's return back to the command that created the WordPress or the wpress container. And this time, let's type in our link flag. It's going to link wpressdb container. And the name that is going to be used by this container, let's say it's going to be MySQL. Okay, now everything works fine. Let's press enter. And let's have a look at our WordPress container. Okay, now it is not running still. Let's examine again the logs to see what else happened wrong. So docker logs wpress. And as you can see here, I have a number of error messages that are related to some sort of a problem with a file descriptor. It's fatal error, unable to create log file, bad file descriptor. And that is because we are using a read-only file system to run WordPress. And actually WordPress needs some file systems or some locations of the file system to be able to write to it. And that is because it needs to make some changes to the underlying file system. It is a very few changes, and and they are very minor, but WordPress just cannot start without making those changes. So we can make an exception. Of course, we are not going to abandon the read-only file system mechanism, but we are going to make a few exceptions. We're going just to mention or to instruct the container to exempt a number of locations on the file system from the read-only flag. We're going to do this by using the volumes, and as we said, we're going to discuss volumes later in this course. Just understand for the moment that we are using this example to exempt some locations on the file system of the read-only protection level. So it's -v, and the file systems or the locations of the file system that need to be exempted are /run/apache2, then -v again, /run/lock/apache2, and finally -v/temp. These are the three locations that WordPress needs to have write access to in order to start correctly. Now let's press enter. Okay, now we forgot to delete the old container. Let's run that again. Okay, and it seems that it's running good. Let's have a look at docker ps. And finally, we have here WordPress running at port 80 here, and the name is wpress. Okay, and we will have to also add the port that this container will be running on, which is 80. Let's press enter. Okay, everything seems to be running. Let's have a look at docker ps. And okay, finally, I have a container running WordPress image is running in the background, and it is using port 32768 as an interface for the port 80, which is used by the web server. Now, if we want to make sure that this is running, let's have a look at our virtual machine on which this command is running, and let's type in http localhost and followed by colon, followed by the port name on which WordPress is listening, which is 32768. Let's press enter. And as you can see here, the page is loading, and this is the default page. If you have worked with WordPress before, this is the default installation page where you will have to choose just a couple of options or maybe a little more, and you will have a fully running instance of WordPress. So in this example, we have successfully run WordPress web application inside a container. We have used a protection level of letting the file system be a read-only file system, except for just 3 locations that WordPress needs to write to, but the rest of the installation is kept intact. It will be protected from any write attempts. And we have used another container to host our MySQL database, and we have linked the WordPress container with the MySQL container to create a fully functional WordPress web application. And that concludes our lecture. My name is Ahmad for Avionics, and see you next.